Okay, so I've been hearing a lot of buzz lately about the big players in Indian business. The ones who are really shaking things
Oh,
up.
yeah, they're definitely making waves.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are curious about like what makes them tick, right?
Sure, their stories are pretty fascinating.
Totally. So we're going to dive deep into that today, taking a look at the top 10 Indian entrepreneurs list from Geeks for Geeks.
Sounds good.
So our mission here is to give everyone a crash course on these uh, titans of industry.
Like a who's who of the Indian business world.
Exactly. And not just like who they are, but also how they got there and what makes their story so unique.
Right, because it's not just about the money, it's about the impact. These individuals have really left their mark on India and the global landscape, too.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. I mean, the Indian entrepreneurial scene is booming right now.
It's exploding. And it's not just in tech, we're talking a whole spectrum of industries.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. But before we get into the specifics, let's roll out the names on our top 10 list, just to build some anticipation.
Oh, I like it. A little drum roll.
All right, drum roll, please. So we've got Mukesh Ambani, Ratan Tata, Narayana Murthy, Azim Premji, Lakshmi Mittal, Shiv Nadar, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, Pavish Agarwal, and Baiju Ravindran.
Wow, what a lineup. Each of those names represents a totally different journey, a different approach to business and success.
For sure. Okay, first up is a name that I think most people have probably heard of, even if they're not super into business news. Mukesh Ambani. He's the chairman and biggest shareholder of Reliance Industries.
Reliance Industries, now that's a name that carries some weight.
It does. And here's the thing. Reliance Industries is the most valuable company in India, period.
And their reach is massive. We're talking petrochemicals, refining, oil and gas, telecom, retail, you name it, they're probably involved in it.
It's like they have their fingers in every pie imaginable. But what makes Ambani really interesting, at least to me, is that he's not just content with being a traditional industrialist. He's more like a digital transformer.
I see where you're going with this. You're talking about Geo, his telecom venture.
Exactly. I mean, think about what that launch did.
Oh, it was a game changer. They came in with those super affordable 4G data plans and basically blanketed the entire country.
And the market just exploded. I mean, the growth after Geo entered the scene was over 350%. That's insane.
It's more than just growth, it's a complete shift. Millions of people who had never been online before suddenly had access, and the cost of data plummeted.
And Bunny basically democratized the digital world in India.
And it's not just about the connectivity. They've built this whole ecosystem around the network apps for everything you can think of. Messaging, entertainment, payments, you name it.
There's a whole digital lifestyle all bundled together.
Talk about forward thinking, right? And
Wow.
Bonnie's really tapped into something special there.
For sure. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about another iconic figure in Indian business, Ratan Tata.
Ah, Ratan Tata. He's practically royalty in India.
Oh, right? He's been leading the Tata Group for decades, and they're involved in just about every aspect of Indian life. Cars, IT, steel, even tea.
It's a true conglomerate. And what's amazing about Tata is his long-term vision. He's not just thinking about the next quarter, he's thinking about the next generation.
And they've made some pretty bold moves over the years. I mean, acquiring companies like Tetley, Jaguar Land Rover, and Chorus, those are game changers.
Absolutely. But you know what truly sets Ratan Tata apart, at least in my mind? It's his commitment to philanthropy. Get this, he directs 66% of the Tata Group's profits to charitable trusts.
Wait, seriously, 66%.
Yeah, talk about giving back to society. He's not just building businesses, he's building a better India. And his main focus is on education, healthcare, and poverty alleviation.
He's literally investing in the future of India. Okay, let's dive back into the world of IT with Narayana Murthy, co-founder of Infosys.
Infosys, that's a name that everyone in the tech world knows. They're a global giant, and Murthy was a key figure in that journey. One of his big innovations was the global delivery model, which was revolutionary for the IT outsourcing industry.
I have to admit, I'm not totally familiar with that. What exactly is the global delivery model and how did it change things?
Well, think about it this way. What if companies could tap into a global pool of talent for their IT needs and get high-quality work done at a fraction of the cost? That's what Murthy made possible.
Ah, so he's the one who kind of pioneered that whole idea of offshoring IT work.
Exactly. He set these development centers in India, taking advantage of the country's huge talent pool and cost advantages. And it worked. clients could outsource their projects to Infosys and get top-notch work done, all while saving money.
Wow. So he basically created a whole new industry. That's impressive.
And the impact went way beyond just Infosys. It opened the door for tons of other Indian IT companies to go global and made India a major player in the IT world.
That's incredible.
But there's another side to Murthy that I find really interesting. His commitment to ethical business practices. He stepped down as chairman in 2011, but then came back in 2013 because he felt the company needed his guidance.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. And he didn't just come back and relax. He raised some serious concerns about corporate governance, which led to a shakeup on the board.
Exactly. He wasn't afraid to rock the boat to make sure the company he built stayed true to its values.
Okay, now for a story that's truly inspiring, we have Azim Premji. This guy took a small vegetable oil business called Wipro and turned it into a global IT powerhouse.
That's what I call a career pivot. He went from cooking oil to coding.
Talk about a dramatic shift. But that's what's so remarkable about Premji, right? He had this vision, this foresight to see the potential of computing way back in the 1970s.
At a time when most people in India didn't even know what a computer was.
Exactly. And he made this bold decision to switch Wipro's focus from, consumer goods to software development.
It was a gamble, for sure, but it paid off big time.
It shows you that it's not just about luck. It's about having the vision to see the future and the courage to go after it.
And just like Ratan Tata, Premji is a big believer in giving back. He's donated billions to education through the Azim Premji Foundation. He's another one who's not just interested in building wealth, but in building a better India.
Okay, so we've got IT giants, a digital revolutionary, a philanthropic visionary. Now, get ready for someone who operates on a truly global scale. We're talking Lakshmi Mittal, the man behind the world's largest steelmaking company, ArcelorMittal.
Now we're talking heavy metal. This is a company with a revenue of $80 billion.
$80 billion.
That's bigger than the GDP of many countries. Mittal is known for being a strategic and, some might say, aggressive businessman.
He's not afraid to make big moves, that's for sure.
Definitely not. And he's consolidated the global steel industry through a series of, well, let's just say bold mergers and acquisitions.
Like that time they acquired SR Steel back in 2019 for, what was it, almost $6 billion?
Yeah. $5.9 billion to be exact. It was a massive deal, even in the world of billion-dollar deals. Mittal's a master strategist, and they study his moves in business schools around the world.
So it sounds like his approach is all about strategic acquisitions, operational excellence, and a global vision.
And let's not forget his role in modernizing steel production facilities. He's invested heavily in new technologies, pushing the industry forward.
Okay, let's shift back to the tech world for a bit with Shiv Nadar, founder of HCL Technologies.
Another one of India's IT giants.
It seems like there are a lot of those. And HCL is another example of a company that started small and became a global player. It's a pretty classic story at this point, right?
It is, but there's a twist. HCL started in a garage. Nadar and 5 of his friends got together and started building microcomputers.
Wow, a global tech giant born in a garage. Talk about humble beginnings.
Right. It's that classic entrepreneurial spirit.
And what's also interesting about HCL is the generational shift that we're seeing. In 2020, Nadar handed over the reins to his daughter, Roshni Nadar Malhotra. She became the chairperson of HCL Technologies.
That's a pretty big deal, not just for HCL, but for Indian business as a whole. It's a sign of progress.
For sure. Okay, speaking of trailblazers, our next entrepreneur is a woman who's broken down barriers in the biopharmaceutical industry, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw.
She's an inspiration.
She founded Biocon Limited, and they've been instrumental in making affordable healthcare accessible to millions of people, not just in India, but globally.
Her work has been so important, especially for developing countries.
Absolutely. And I know the pharmaceutical industry can be tough, especially for women in leadership positions. What were some of the challenges she faced in building Biocon?
Well, think about it. She started in the 1970s. She was a woman entering a male-dominated field, and biotechnology was still a relatively new and untested industry in India at that time.
So she was facing an uphill battle from the get-go.
For sure. Funding was hard to come by, and she had to overcome a lot of societal biases. People doubted her ability to succeed just because she was a woman.
So she was battling on multiple fronts.
But she was driven by this deep passion for science and its potential to improve people's lives. She wanted to make affordable medicine a reality, especially for those who couldn't afford the expensive treatments.
She's often called the biotech queen of India, and it's easy to see why.
Okay, now let's talk about something that most of us probably use every single day: digital payments.
Ah, yes. The modern world.
Exactly. Up next, we have Vijay Shekhar Sharma, the founder of Paytm, India's biggest digital payments platform. I'm guessing you've used Paytm at some point, right?
Of course. Who hasn't? I mean, it's everywhere in India.
It is. You can pay for groceries, book movie tickets, even pay your bills with it. And Sharma had this incredible vision for how mobile technology could transform financial services in India.
And he was right. I mean, think about what happened after the government's demonetization initiative back in 2016.
Oh, that was a huge turning point. Suddenly, digital payments weren't just convenient, they were essential.
And Paytm was perfectly positioned to capitalize on that. They were in the right place at the right time.
And they've grown like crazy. They've expanded way beyond just mobile wallets. Now they offer banking services, wealth management, insurance, even e-commerce.
So it's not just about payments anymore. It's about creating a whole financial ecosystem.
Exactly. And they're making financial services accessible to millions of people who were previously excluded.
Okay, let's move on to transportation. Our next entrepreneur is someone who's shaking up the way people get around. Pavish Agarwal, co-founder of Ola Cabs.
Ola. They're giving Uber a run for their money in India.
They're the ones who are like the Indian version of Uber.
Yep, that's them. And they've been incredibly successful. One of the keys to their success is understanding the Indian market. They realized that they needed to offer something different from Uber.
So what do they do differently?
Well, for one, they embraced auto rickshaws.
Those are like the three-wheeled taxis that are everywhere in India.
Those are the ones. They're super popular, and Ola made them a key part of their platform. They also focused on integrating local payment options and expanding into smaller towns and cities, places where Uber wasn't really present.
Ah, so they really localized their approach.
Exactly. And now they're moving into the electric vehicle market, which is a huge opportunity.
That's a pretty ambitious move.
It is, but Agarwal is a proven disruptor, and he's got a vision for a more sustainable future of transportation.
All right. Last but not least, we have Baiju Ravendran, founder of BYJUS. Have you heard of this?
Oh yeah, BYJUS is huge in India.
They're the EdTech platform that's like revolutionizing the way kids learn.
Yeah, you are. Ravendran wanted to make learning fun and engaging, and he's done that by using technology to create a totally personalized learning experience.
I've heard their app is amazing. They use interactive videos, games, quizzes, all the things that kids love.
It's brilliant, really. They've tapped into how kids actually learn best and made it addictive.
So they're not just for school kids, right? I think they have courses for adults, too.
Yep, they've expanded a lot. Now they offer courses for competitive exams, professional development, even coding, and they're one of the most valuable edtech companies in the world.
That's incredible. So there you have it, our top 10 Indian entrepreneurs. And as you can see, these are more than just successful business people.
They're visionaries,
Innovators,
disruptors.
and in many cases, philanthropists. They're shaping the future of India in so many ways.
And it's not over yet. Their stories are still being written.
Welcome back. Ready to dive deeper into the minds of these incredible entrepreneurs.
I'm ready to go deeper. So much to unpack here. What else do we need to know?
Okay, well, let's revisit Mukesh Ambani and Reliance Industries for a moment. Remember how we were talking about him being a digital transformer?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Well, there's actually a specific strategy at play there that's worth exploring. It's called vertical integration.
Vertical integration. That sounds a little bit technical. It's simpler than it sounds. Imagine a company that not only produces oil, but also refines it, distributes it, and even sells it at their own gas stations.
Ah, okay, I get it.
That's basically what Reliance does. They control the whole supply chain, from the raw materials all the way to the end consumer.
We're cutting out the middleman every step of the way. Makes sense.
Exactly. And that gives them a huge edge in terms of cost and efficiency. And they've applied the same principle to Jio. They didn't just launch a telecom network. They built an entire ecosystem around it. Apps for messaging, entertainment, payments, online shopping, everything.
Like their own little digital empire.
Pretty much. But of course, that kind of dominance can also raise some concerns about competition.
Right.
There have been some worries about Reliance's market power and whether they're squeezing out smaller players. But then again, the positive impact of Jio on internet penetration and affordability in India is undeniable. It's a complicated situation.
I hear you. Okay, let's move on to Ratan Tata and the Tata Group. What makes their approach to business unique?
Legacy. Tata is not just building businesses, he's building institutions.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, he's thinking in terms of decades, not just quarterly profits. And you see that reflected in their incredibly diverse portfolio of companies.
Yeah, they're involved in everything.
That's very intentional. It helps balance risk and ensure the group's sustainability for the long haul.
It's like they've got all their bases covered.
But of course, you can't talk about Tata without talking about his philanthropic work. Remember, 66% of profits going to charity.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, there's a fascinating story behind that. It goes back to the family's deep-rooted belief in giving back to society.
Okay, I want to hear this.
The Tata family believes that wealth is a trust, not a privilege. And that belief has been passed down for generations.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's more than just philanthropy. It's woven into the very fabric of their business philosophy. They see making a difference as just as important as making money.
All right, let's shift gears again and talk about Narayana Murthy and Infosys.
Now, here's an entrepreneur who truly changed the game. Remember we talked about his global delivery model?
Yeah, it revolutionized IT outsourcing, right?
It did, but it was more than just a business strategy. It was almost like a social experiment in a way.
How so?
Well, Murthy really believed that India's talent pool could be harnessed to create a global workforce. He wanted to bridge the gap between developed and developing nations, and he saw IT as the perfect tool for that.
So he was thinking about the social impact from the very beginning.
He was. He saw IT as a way to drive social and economic empowerment. And of course, the global delivery model did create a ton of jobs and wealth in India, but it also made IT services way more affordable for companies all over the world.
So everyone benefited.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But of course, there were challenges along the way. It wasn't easy to convince global clients that Indian engineers could deliver high-quality work at a lower cost.
There must have been a lot of skepticism at first.
Oh, absolutely. People had a lot of preconceived notions, but Murthy and his team didn't give up. They invested heavily in training, in quality control, and in building a strong reputation.
And it worked.
It did. Infosys set the standard for other Indian IT companies, and they proved that India could be a global leader in the knowledge economy.
Okay, on to another IT giant with a very unique journey, Azim Premji and Wipro.
Oh, yeah, the story of Wipro is wild.
I mean, turning a vegetable oil business into a global IT powerhouse. That's incredible.
It's the ultimate example of thinking outside the box. What prompted that kind of shift? Well, Premji was a visionary, plain and simple. He saw the potential of computing back in the 1970s when it was still a very new thing.
So he was way ahead of the curve.
He was, and he wasn't afraid to take a risk. He poured resources into building Wipro's technical capabilities, even though it meant moving away from their core business.
That takes guts.
It does. But Premji had this unwavering belief in the future of computing. And luckily for him, he was right. Wipro became a major player in the IT outsourcing boom, riding the wave of globalization and the rise of the internet. It's a classic story of seeing an opportunity and going all in.
Okay, back to the world of steel with Lakshmi Mittal and ArcelorMittal.
Now, here's an entrepreneur who plays on a global scale. Mittal is all about consolidation.
You built a giant by bringing together a bunch of smaller companies, right?
Exactly. He saw that the steel industry was fragmented and inefficient, and he knew he could do better. He wanted to create a global powerhouse, and he wasn't shy about making bold moves to achieve that.
Like that SR Steel acquisition, almost $6 billion.
It was a statement. But it wasn't just about buying companies. Mittal was all about integrating those companies effectively, creating a lean, mean, global machine.
So he was focused on operational efficiency as much as growth.
Absolutely. He squeezed every bit of value out of his acquisitions. And he was also a pioneer in modernizing steel production. He invested heavily in technology, in automation, in R&D.
So he was pushing the boundaries of the industry.
He was. He knew that to be a global leader, you can't just be big, you have to be smart.
All right, back to the world of tech with Shiv Nadar and HCL Technologies. It's interesting how many of these IT giants started in a garage, just like HCL.
It's the classic underdog story, right?
It is. But what stands out to me about HCL is their focus on employee empowerment and innovation.
Nadar was all about creating a work environment where people felt valued and empowered to share their ideas. He wanted people to think outside the box.
So he fostered a culture of creativity.
He did, and that's been a big part of their success. They've attracted and retained top talent because people want to work in that kind of environment. It's a valuable lesson for any entrepreneur. Building a great company starts with building a great team.
Now let's talk about the woman who broke the glass ceiling in the biopharmaceutical industry. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Her story is truly remarkable.
She's a fighter. Remember how we were talking about all the challenges she faced starting Biocon? Well, she didn't just overcome those challenges, she crushed them.
What do you mean?
Well, getting funding for a biotech startup in India back then was incredibly tough, especially for a woman.
Yeah, I bet.
People told her her ideas were too ambitious, too risky, but she refused to give up. She even mortgaged her own house to raise capital.
Wow, that's dedication.
She truly believed in herself and in the power of biotechnology to change lives, and she proved all the doubters wrong. Biocon became a global force in biopharmaceuticals, creating life-saving drugs that are now affordable and accessible to millions.
Quite an inspiration.
It shows you that with enough passion and perseverance, anything is possible.
Okay, let's move on to Vijay Shekhar Sharma and Paytm. Their story is all about identifying a need and meeting it in a brilliant way.
Sharma had this insight that India was ready for a digital revolution. He saw millions of people getting smartphones and access to the internet, but they didn't have easy or secure ways to make payments. He saw that gap and he built a bridge to fill it.
And Paytm became that bridge, connecting the offline and online worlds.
They've gone way beyond mobile wallets, too. They've expanded into banking, wealth management, insurance, online shopping. They've built a complete financial ecosystem.
They're constantly innovating, aren't they?
That's the key to their success. They've stayed ahead of the curve by adapting to the changing needs of their users.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about Bhavish Agarwal and Ola. They took on Uber, a giant in the ride-hailing industry, and made a real impact. How did they do that?
Agarwal understood that to win in India, you have to play by India's rules. He knew the Indian market was different, with its own unique set of needs and challenges.
So they didn't just copy Uber's model.
Nope. They did things differently. For one, they embraced auto rickshaws, which are super popular in India. They also focused on local payment options and expanded into smaller towns and cities where Uber didn't have much presence.
So they really played the localization game well.
They did, and now they're taking on the electric vehicle market, which is a whole new challenge.
And a huge opportunity.
Absolutely. It's ambitious, but Agarwal is a proven disruptor, and I wouldn't bet against him.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive, but I feel like we're just getting started.
I know, right? So many fascinating stories, but there's one more layer to this that we need to explore.
Okay, so we've gone deep into the stories of some of India's most successful entrepreneurs.
We have, from those humble beginnings to those global empires they've built.
And I'm honestly blown away by the sheer scale of their achievements.
It's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it?
It is. But now I'm kind of curious to zoom out a bit, look at the bigger picture.
You mean like the overall landscape of Indian entrepreneurship?
Exactly. What are the big trends that emerge when we look beyond these individual stories?
Well, one thing that really jumps out at me is the incredible diversity of industries that these entrepreneurs represent.
That's true. And we've got everything from steel and energy to technology, healthcare, education. It's all over the map.
It really speaks to the breadth of India's entrepreneurial spirit, doesn't it?
It's like a reflection of India itself. Vibrant, diverse, full of potential.
I like that. And it's not just about building businesses for the sake of it. A lot of these entrepreneurs are driven by this desire to solve real problems, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They want to make a difference. They're tackling things like poverty, healthcare access, education inequality.
They're using their success to make a positive impact.
Exactly. And another trend that's impossible to ignore is the role of technology.
Oh, yeah. Tech has been a game changer.
It's enabled them to reach wider markets, connect with customers in new ways, and build businesses that can scale incredibly fast.
Think about Paytm and BYJUS. They wouldn't exist without technology.
Exactly. And it's not just about startups either. Even those more traditional companies like Reliance and Tata, they're embracing digital transformation in a big way.
So tech is no longer just a tool. It's like the foundation for everything.
It is. And one of the most amazing things about this tech revolution is how it's driven financial inclusion in India.
Oh, yeah, giving people access to financial services who've never had it before.
It's really leveled the playing field in a lot of ways.
So it's been a really positive force.
It has. But of course, there are still challenges that Indian entrepreneurs face.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like what?
Well, one of the big ones is the regulatory environment. It can be really tough to navigate all the rules and regulations, especially for startups.
I can imagine. Bureaucracy is never fun.
It can really stifle innovation.
Mhm.
And then there's access to funding, which is still a major hurdle for a lot of early stage companies.
Right, because even though there's more venture capital flowing into India these days, it's still not as easy to get funding as it is in some other places.
Exactly. And then there's the lack of infrastructure in some parts of the country.
Things like reliable electricity, internet access, good roads.
All of that. It makes it harder for businesses to grow and expand, especially in rural areas.
So there are definitely still some roadblocks.
There are. But despite those challenges, I'm incredibly optimistic about the future of Indian entrepreneurship.
Me too. Why are you so optimistic?
Well, for starters, India has this incredibly young and dynamic population.
A demographic dividend, right?
Exactly. This generation is tech-savvy, ambitious, and eager to make their mark.
They've grown up with technology, so they're not afraid to embrace new ideas and experiment.
And the government is starting to realize how important it is to foster an entrepreneurial ecosystem. There are more and more initiatives to support startups, provide mentoring, simplify regulations.
So the environment's becoming more favorable for entrepreneurs.
It is. And then there's the Indian diaspora. They're playing a huge role too, you
Yeah.
know. They're connecting India to the global market, providing investment, mentorship, access to networks. It's like this global support system for Indian entrepreneurship.
And with India's economy continuing to grow, there are only going to be more opportunities for entrepreneurs to succeed.
I think so too.
It's definitely an exciting time to be in India.
It is. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. The stories of these entrepreneurs, they show us that success isn't about luck or being in the right place at the right time. It's about vision, determination, resilience, and a willingness to embrace change.
And to never give up on your dreams, no matter how crazy they might seem.
That's it. If you're inspired by what you've heard today, if you have an idea that's burning inside you, don't wait. Go for it. The world needs your innovation.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Indian entrepreneurship. It's been an incredible journey, and I hope our listeners are feeling as inspired as I am.